Welcome back to Impact and Influence. I'm here with Barry Karcher today from history's hit TV show Alone, Season 6, The Artic. Barry, thanks for joining us today.
I appreciate you having me. Thank you.
Of course. You survived 69 days in the Arctic. What was that like?
Oh, that's a loaded question. I mean, it has a lot looking back on it, it seems like a very short period of time. But it encompassed so much in regards to the change that happened to me personally while I was out there. So it was beautifully tragic, and at the same time, it was the most beautiful experience because I had, what many would refer to as an ego death. And it has served me very well.
You said ego death. How do you describe that?
Okay, so when I look back at Barry Karcher, the person before the show, that person had essentially based his entire identity around a whole list of first world accomplishments.
Okay.
So I was doing things out of ego. I was wanting attention for them. I couldn't just run the marathon. I had to let everybody know I ran the marathon. You know what I mean? Like it was really awkward. So the ego death happened where I realized that I had developed this entire identity and this personality off these really first world accomplishments. And what I mean by that is, like, I have a functional heart, lung, leg, brain. My body works. I have access to food, sleep, running shoes. I can train safely in the streets. You really shouldn't be patting yourself on the back for those kind of things, I feel. I mean, neat that you did them.
Yeah.
However, big deal.
Yeah.
Big deal. And that's hard for a lot of people to swallow. And it was hard for me to swallow because I was this big, Billy badass self-defense instructor. It was like, it was really, really disheartening to see how empty all of those accomplishments truly were. And then to have an identity wrapped around them, it was even worse. And then at my age, to have developed circles and friends and built goals around that ego. So whenever it was all wiped away, coming back and having to come back to this world that I created for myself that was so shallow, it was disheartening. So the ego death was essential because I couldn't imagine going back. I couldn't imagine going back to that guy who did everything out of ego.
Yeah.
It just seems like I was a very scared man. That's what I was.
I mean, life's a journey, right? So I assume a lot of people could benefit from going through a bit of an ego death. I mean, do you have any advice for people to sort of help get over that ego that they might not even realize they have?
No, and the thing is this: you probably don't realize you have it because it's built to protect you.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying? Yeah. This identity is built to protect you. It's built to support you moment to moment. Because what we end up doing with a lot of our history and a lot of our past is we really spit shine it. We really dress it up. Okay? So all of these situations that have been maybe traumas or maybe have been major pivotal moments in our life and really, really those big moments that may have changed us in very, very subtle ways, we varnish them. and we make them feel good so we can get on with life. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Whether that's the abuse from a loved one, whether that's the, homelessness, whether that's poverty, you name it, whatever it is, as we get older, we spit shine that stuff so we can kind of move through. So a lot of people don't want to, tear the varnish off of that. They don't want to lean into the work that it takes to really go and explore those things that may have caused them or forced them to change. What would I recommend to people?
Yeah.
Lean into it. That's what I would say. If you're truly going, yes, this is something I think I would enjoy. If you really just completely want to destroy your identity and have to refigure and learn a lot about yourself again, if that's something you're interested in, then I would say this: lean into it. It's gonna suck.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing good, or correction, there's nothing that feels good about that kind of growth. It's only once you're through it that you kind of go, well, shit, that was worth it. But that's how most big events are. Childbirth, for instance, or say running a marathon, when it's not done out of ego. But my point is, if somebody's really wanting to change who they are at their core, reassess their core values and really change their life, like I was forced to do. I was forced into that environment.
Yeah.
Lean into it.
Okay.
It's really, really easy to become distracted. It's really, really easy it's very easy to also surround yourself or go to people who will support you staying exactly where you're at.
Yeah. Well, it's like your social media accounts, not yours specifically, but in general, one of my friends was saying this the other day. It's a bit of an echo chamber. You follow the news that you want to hear about. You follow the accounts that you want to know more about. If you have a certain line of thinking, you want just to focus on that line of thinking. So, yeah, that's really interesting that you say that. Now, going back and watching yourself on Alone, was that a very surreal experience for you? I mean, I can only imagine. You said you went through so much change, and to go back and kind of rewind your life and watch that, 2 months and a week, I believe, that had to have been interesting. What was that like?
Well, that's a good question. That's a really good question, because I was only about a year out from coming back. So I was still working through a lot of things that were byproducts of the show. For instance, my physical health due to the starvation, my mental health, being able to carry on a conversation with a human being, like literally just not that I was like, not that I couldn't, right? It wasn't like I forgot how to speak or anything. It's just that whenever I had to look past the fact that I was dealing with a first world individual. So I'd be speaking to somebody and they're sitting there and, something would come out of their mouth like, fuck, I'm freezing. I'd be like, are you? You know what I mean? So I had to kind of learn to take a step back and realize I'm back in the first world. And everybody has different comfort zones and levels at which they operate. And I just had to learn to accept that and reintegrate into that. So whenever the show aired, I was viewing it for the first time the same way everybody else was. And it was very intriguing because I felt this pressure to nurture this up and coming image that was about to be exposed through the Alone experience on the History Channel. So I felt this responsibility to repost anything the Alone History Channel show was to boost the season. I felt the responsibility to have the viewing party. I had viewing parties every week, every Thursday.
Wow. Okay.
And that worked out because I was in 8 of the 10 episodes. So it was, So I was seeing it for the first time, but here's the gravity of it. I was seeing it for the first time, and I was having to, at that time, still balance this new environment with this old environment with this new person. remember I told you I came back to a world that I'd created under false pretenses that were loaded with ego. And when I came back and none of that stuff mattered, wow, that really turns your world upside down. It turns your marriage upside down, your friendships, it turns everything upside down. So for me, it was a big change to be in that moment, and then also now have this fresh dose of what brought you to this moment. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it was very, very intriguing. But you have to understand, I think I had a little over 5,000 hours of footage because you film the entire time you're out there. So the whole time there was a little bit of like, oh my gosh, how are they going to portray me as like a dumb, like some big dumb red? Yeah, but they told a beautiful story. They took the footage, they took the information that I trusted them with, and they told a really wonderful story that I'm very, very proud of. So yeah, seeing it was just a different experience because at the time I was still very raw.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, in watching it and seeing some of the other folks, I mean, obviously it's alone, so you're by yourself. But the other contestants on the show, I'm sure it was just as interesting to watch sort of what they went through as well. I saw one of your contestants was the first one not to bring a fire starter to the show, and I just, I was a Boy Scout when I was younger, and always be prepared, right? And I just thought to myself, like, that could have been one of those 10 things you brought.
Well, I think, okay, so the whenever you're going in, you have to choose 10 of your items, right? There's a balance that happens in the choosing of those 10 items. You choose the 10 items, right, that you kind of know you're going to need. You can't make a sleeping bag really in the Arctic. You could, but that's a lot of time and energy and expenditure. Yeah. So you play to your strengths, but you play to also the environment. So I think when it came down to what Nathan was doing, he played to his strength. He teaches friction fire courses regularly. I don't know if I have the pleasure of knowing him personally, and the dude is an encyclopedia. It's kind of annoying. It's kind of annoying how much this guy knows about like homesteading and survival, because literally you can just point at something and he'll be like, oh yeah, you can eat that. Or, like the guy is just it's massive knowledge. So whenever he didn't take the fire starter, he was playing into a strength.
Okay.
But what I think kind of backfired for him was he wasn't prepared for the environment. There where we were at, the trees have a very short growing season. So really none of the trees there are bigger around than, say, 6 inches. They're just fairly small. So that means their grains are very tight. And when you have tight packed grains like that, it resembles a hardwood, and it's really definitely difficult to get a flame. Luckily, he was able to find that wood.
Board, yeah. I thought that was interesting. And it kind of goes back to one thing you said on the show, is that you just have to adapt. Yeah. I mean, I assume you did that a lot out there, but I mean, how do you bring that back into your daily life? Do you find yourself adapting? I mean, I assume you find yourself adapting quite a lot now.
Well, it's a different type of survival.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying? Okay, so for instance, like whenever I was out there, the learning curve was so drastic. As soon as I figured out a great place to fish, it would freeze over. Like it was just like, it was one thing after the other in regards to that learning curve. You just kept swinging, kept going with the punches, because you realize anytime you didn't, it could be the end of your run. Yeah. And there's a lot on the line. Not just the monetary value. The monetary $500,000, that all fades away with time. Money becomes, your brain goes lizard, and it doesn't care about the money. You start really looking for things like food. But how I integrate that whenever I come back, and this is something that took me a little bit of time to learn how to balance. Excuse me. Do you mind going somewhere else? Listen, excuse me, I'm sorry.
No worries.
Please. So I was I'm sorry, I lost track.
No worries. We were talking about adapting.
Yes, adapting. So in the beginning, it was really about the small things. I was adapting to a whole new diet due to my refeeding syndrome and trying to prevent that through my diet. There were these small adaptations. They were more moment-to-moment adaptations. Now they have bigger strides in them. My adaptations are more of how do I want to spend my remaining time on the planet. Like my priorities all changed. A lot of my core values changed. So now adaptation is really how do I bring this new insight, this new enlightenment, this new purpose into an old world, in my opinion, something I built for myself that doesn't really support it. My wife, like for instance, she asked me, she goes, well, what do you want to do with the rest of your life? I'm like, well, I want to act. I'm like, I would love to be able, yeah, I would love to be able to be different people and like play different characters and really dive into those emotional ranges, because that's what I loved every bit of that as part of the show, right? Yeah. So I have new things I want to do now. There's really not much about my past life that supports that, but it doesn't mean I don't do it. I just give up. So your adaptations are primarily, for me anyway, at this point in time, are just implementing these new desires and passions and directions that I want to take in my life. That's the adaptation that's happening now.
I love that. And I love the reinvention too. I was reading an article in the Coloradan, and it said that your wife Constance, she was giving a compliment about you during the show, and let me see, I have the note here. It says you accomplish everything that you set out to do. So, I think that certainly adapting that way, and that's wonderful that you have such a great support system.
It's wild. I never viewed it that way. A vast majority of my life has been fight or flight. I grew up in a very abusive household with extreme poverty, homeless on numerous occasions. All the horrible things. And so for me, a lot of my life was always fight or flight. So I never realized that I was accomplishing anything. For me, it was like I'm gonna do this 110% because I don't want to fail. I want to get as far from this situation as possible.
Yeah.
And seeing the amount of failing and failure that was happening around me, my example was horrible. So I wanted to go the opposite direction. I didn't realize it was something good being noticed or something positive being demonstrated. I just wanted the hell out of that situation, and I wanted to be as opposite of that as I could be. So setting that habit very early in life kind of led to me doing a lot of these other type of things that my wife views as accomplishments. Looking back, I love my wife, and she's incredibly supportive, and she's one of a kind, right? But I also have to remember my wife is still one of the people who's a first world individual, right? So it sucks for me to have to say that out loud. But like when my wife says she's impressed by something I do, I mean, I view it as just something that gets done, So it's not that I can't take a compliment. It's just that when you boil down salt water, you're left with salt, and we really pat ourselves on the back for a lot of shit we shouldn't be doing. We shouldn't be. I should be accomplishing things. There's nothing holding me back, really. I'm a Caucasian male with blonde hair and blue eyes. I'm 6'2". Like I don't really have. I'm acknowledging my privilege here. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
So it really kind of, it's not that I can't take a compliment. It's just that now I'm in a state where that's a natural state of doing.
Hmm.
Nothing to really be excited about. That's what you should be doing, is filling your time with these things that help you grow and evolve. So yeah, I love my wife and I understand her compliment, but at the same time, I have to be honest. I told you I would be.
Absolutely.
I see it from a standpoint of thank you, but what's really holding me back?
I love that that's built into you, and I think so many people can take things away from that. Especially younger generations. I fit into the millennial bucket a bit. I'm at the oldest end of the millennials, but our generation and younger kind of gets hit with, everybody wants a pat on the back, and everybody wants, this and that, and trophies for everything. But I think people have a lot to learn from what you just said there.
Well, the okay, and here again, I don't want to sound rude or angry, or I'm not. I'm
Oh,
not bitter. This is just
yeah.
me expressing my honest truth. They won't. They won't learn anything from it. They won't learn anything from it, and I can tell you why. I can tell you why. Because they're going to move. They'll eventually they get over the information. They eventually get over the impact it has, and they're on to the next thing. It's not that generations are so different. It's just that we have more distractions nowadays. We have more heroes that aren't even truly heroes. They don't even really exist in real life. If you met your hero, you'd be very disappointed, right? So for me, it's just I had to take this very large step back, and I've used this example in numerous occasions. But like, I stepped back and experienced starvation. When I came back to a world where I knew 2 to 3 million children are going to die of starvation this year. But there are actually people who are pissed off about syrup bottles.
Mm.
It's hard. It's hard to engage human mentalities, and that's how I know. And unfortunately, anything I say or anything that's expressed or anything that's heard may have an impact for a short moment, but I can guarantee you 99.9% of the listeners that anything I have to say will forget about it and move on and do something else. And it's unfortunate because I don't want to say I know a truth. I just know an honesty. And there's an honesty with what I went through. And it's unfortunate because most people will never, ever force themselves into an ego death situation.
Mm-hmm. I want to talk to you about honesty for a second. While you were out there, there was a couple times where you broke down, and one time you said, "I just needed a good cry."
Yeah.
I thought to myself, like, there's such, for the average male, there's such a stigma against any male shedding tears outside of the movies and everything like that.
Sure. Oh, I caught it. I caught the brunt of that. I had plenty of individuals, even women, who were like, saying that was pathetic, and so it was a very strange dynamic. I think what a lot of people don't. Here's what they saw. They saw a very large man begin to weep for his wife and cry. Right. What they didn't understand was I had begun to forget what my children's faces looked like. Your brain prioritizes, and happy little faces aren't priority. Recognizing bear shit and berries you can eat and wood you can burn, that's what becomes important. I had begun to lose my support system mentally. My wife, I just recently celebrated my wife's anniversary. My wife and I's anniversary out there. So our 3-year anniversary, and it was tough. And again, I had created a world that protected my ego.
Sure.
I had a wife that would hug me if I was having a bad day. A wife that engages me and asks what's going on. And when you're out there, there's none of that shit. You have no cheerleaders. You are your own psychiatrist, your own everything. And it's freaking heavy. So yeah, dude, I broke down. But I also understood something. There was no way in the world I could just shove that shit down. Like, Like, there's no way. It's too
Yeah.
much. There's too much going on out there that you can just shove that shit down and not expect it to resurface at a later date, even more powerful, or even, I guess you could, debilitating. I made a promise to myself that the only real way I was going to take everything I could from this experience, if I didn't win the money, right, was if I stayed true to the process.
Mhm.
And that process, I knew, meant that I was going to have to do a lot of self-exploration, and I was going to have to strip the varnish off a lot of bullshit in my life. And I had to do that. So if I was doing something, like, let's say I was sawing wood, or if I was collecting berries or something, and something hit me, I would stop whatever I was doing, go back to my shelter, and I would process it. I would not let it sit, fester. You can't do that out there. You just, on top of starving, on top of your body breaking down, being weak, on top of the freezing temperatures that you're in, on top of predators that are hunting. You have all of this happening at one time. It's a lot on the human body. So what I had to do was I had to take the comments that were coming and realize, oh man, I remember I was that person who was the armchair quarterback too.
Yeah.
These people are saying this about me from a place of absolute comfort, So
Sure. Well, not that my opinion matters, but I thought it was an incredibly powerful moment. So,
thank you. I believe it was too. And period. I'm a crier. I'll just confess it. I'm a crier. I don't know. I am. I don't think there's anything really wrong with it. I don't see the problem. I encourage my son to cry.
I
I
was
don't.
just talking with my son about this the other night as well, and it's something that I saw on Facebook the other day. Hashtag Fight the Stigma. One of my friends posted, and it was so funny that it all kind of came to being because I was going to ask you this question. I saw that I'd already talked to my son about it all in the same week. So that's
Well, I have a really good friend who gave me a great bit of information about child rearing, and I grew up a very troubled child. I
okay.
fought all the time. I was getting constantly suspended, as in trouble. I was a problem kid, and it was because any attention I could get, and I was really good at being bad. You know
Mhm.
what I mean?
Sure.
So I was talking with him one day about certain things about raising my son. He goes, "You know what, Barry?" He goes, "We can take you as an example." And I go, "Please do." He goes, "Well, here's what I'm going to say about it." He goes, "It's easier to make a sweet kid tough than it is to make a tough kid sweet."
Mm.
And that really sunk in with me, because I was a tough kid. I had to be a tough kid. I was raised as a tough kid, and turning me into this gentle individual who now steps back and really feels what people say, this kind of person who's willing to cry. It took
Yeah.
a lot of years. And so that's the approach I'm taking with my son. Of course, he's going to learn Krav Maga, Jiu-Jitsu, and he's going to learn, all of those fantastic things that make him a better protector. But he's also going to understand compassion and what it means to maybe de-escalate before violence. Don't let that be the first option. Whereas with a tough kid, that's the answer for everything.
I think that's wonderful because so we have that in common. I studied the art of Tang Sudo for almost 20 years and trained
Right.
and taught, and it's incredibly powerful. It's something that it grows a lot of self-confidence in you from a young age if you start early. And for me, that was an incredible experience. What's it like being a Krav Maga teacher? Have you been doing that long? You said you're going to get your son into it.
Well, yeah. Actually, I was an instructor for some years, but I actually have stopped.
Okay.
And again, 100% honesty. I can't pander any longer. So if an individual is in my class and they're asking how I'm doing, and I tell them, look, you having to fight with your hands should be your last freaking option. You need to go take a shiv course. You need to go take a small arms course. You need to become hyper and highly proficient with your situational awareness. You know, I would recommend as many things before fighting becomes the first thing they do. However, that's not client retention.
Yes.
Yeah, right. So,
Exactly.
okay. And there's something I know. You can't teach size. You can't. You can't. And nobody wants to freaking hear that. Everyone wants to believe that if you take this particular practice or this particular martial art, you're going to be able to mop the floor with anybody that walks the planet. That's just not true. If you have somebody who isn't even decent in self-defense, who outweighs you by 80 pounds, it's trust me, it's not the same fight. So I just over time, if you do it long enough, you begin to realize that some people just are not going to escape a violent encounter, and it's really up to you and your conscience whether you want to continue convincing them they can. And I just can't do that. So if I had my druthers, I would be able to have a school that just fucking tells it straight, like, you suck. Like, don't count on this, go do something else. Like, I would, but I would have like 2 students. So for me, again, honesty, I just got down to it. It's a business. And yes, it works for a lot of folks, and yes, there's a lot of testimonials out there, but yeah, I just have no real interest in that. And secondarily too, you were talking about how it empowers you and gives you confidence. Well, that can also be a negative, because you'll get some of these individuals who will take a martial art or an MMA course or something, say for 6 months or a year, and suddenly they are walking around like Billy Badasses. I remember reading on a Facebook post where a soccer mom was talking about how when she walked to her car, she saw these 3 guys acting strange and how she wished they would. I'm thinking to myself, like, are you nuts? Like, you 3 dudes? What delusion? What delusion are you living in? And that's the big thing, is Dunning-Kruger. Everybody seems to have, I mean, even I've had to check myself with it. Dunning-Kruger effect, where you believe your skill set is actually greater than it is.
Yeah.
And it baffles me, because you'll also have folks who understand you're going to fall in 30% of your training in a fight scenario anyway.
Exactly.
So like, think about that. 30% of your training, gross motor movements, like, it's not like the movies. So I just had to step away from the instructing and just be honest with myself and go, let them have the delusion. I just can't do it.
Yeah. And I guess it depends on your mindset, and you're absolutely right about that. And one of the things that I love, and just as we're kind of uncovering here, is your honesty with yourself, which I think a lot of people don't have. And do you ever find yourself playing the what if scenario? Even going back to the Artic, you were 8 days away from winning. If you were on 3 different seasons, you would have won based on the amount of days you stayed out there. Do you ever consider that?
Like, I had the what ifs, like, in the beginning. It was hard. It was rough. Like, what could I have done differently? Should I have done this, hunted more, done that? You gotta let all that go, man. I mean, like, eventually you gotta let that go. Because here's the thing, like, here's what a lot of folks don't know. Like, I'm not from the Arctic.
Yep.
I grew up in Kentucky, man. Like I did the best a Kentucky boy could do, I felt. And if it wasn't good enough to win, oh well. Here's the thing about it. What I took away from that experience has overcome the loss of the money. And here's another thing. I wasn't 8 days away. Jordan was slaying stuff out there, man. Like, I was not 8 days away. And if you want me to go even further with my honesty, my ass was kicked.
Yeah.
I had lost 82 pounds.
Wow.
I think at that point I was like 19 days without food or something. Like, I mean, I was done, man. Like, they had to call it. They did it. They did me a favor.
Yeah.
They did me the biggest favor they could have done, because my recovery was long with with getting my health back as far as refeeding and all that. It
Sure.
could have been a lot worse if I had just, been out there. So no, the what ifs, and you know what it is, honestly, the what ifs come down now to, what if I had never even been on the show? What would
Okay.
my life look like? Would I be happy? Would I be as fulfilled as I feel now? Those are the what ifs that kind of happen now. And I think those are the things that make me super grateful that I even had the experience, because man, I would hate to still be that dude running around, you
Yeah.
know.
Well, I think a lot of people spend time thinking about, what if I made this decision in my life, or this business decision, or what if I what if I went here or didn't do that, or went to this school, or
Yeah,
or, or started this business, and
right.
spend so much time worrying. Um,
I hear a lot of first world concern there.
yeah, seems like it takes a lot of that. And what kind of advice would you give for people that are so caught up in that first world concern? How can they
Okay.
see that?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So I just laid my dog down 2 days ago. I had to put my dog down, the family dog. Okay. And we did it here at home. She was surrounded by all of us, cancer. But the vet came here, put her down, and it was a beautiful, beautiful moment, right? And you know what the number one thing we all really wish we had was more time with her, right? More time,
Yeah.
right? Okay. So we always have these little moments that happen, and we have these realizations. We go, oh, that's what life's about. Time. That's what life's about, time. And then a month goes by and we're back in the grind. So again, what's my advice? It doesn't matter. Nobody's going to listen to it. Nobody's going to apply it. But it's
I'm,
since you're asking, I'll give it
yeah.
to you. The actual factual is this: change your freaking core value. If the paper is what you're chasing, right? I can honestly tell you that even whenever you acquire it, you're still not going to be 100% fulfilled. My total advice is this: work for time, not money, not things. Work for time. And here's a little hint: once you start working to bring more time, once you own your time, you bring more time back into your life, everything else follows. Just a natural progression of things in the way the world's set up. If you are working for more time, you're going to find ways to do things quicker, faster, easier, smoother, because slow is smooth, smooth is fast, right? All these kind of concepts will come into play. But when you're working for time, the money's going to come, and so will the materials. This is something I always tried to preach to people in business whenever I owned my businesses.
Okay.
So many people would focus on, I want this car, or I want these clothes, or I want this house. And they have these goals, bang, 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 bang. What I tried to help them understand was, if you're focused with an absolute attitude of gratitude on your highest achievable, conceivable goal, it only makes sense that the house, the money, the clothes, the car, all that shit's going to have to come.
Yeah.
But some people are just the 200 yards out with the headlights in the dark. You know what I mean?
Sure.
The biggest thing you have to do is, in the moments when you have recognized you have manifested some success, when you've manifested something that has happened in your life, or somebody or an event that you go, oh, I think I did that. I think I had some kind of co-creative process in that. Don't go to just the car, the clothes, or the money. Don't do that. Immediately go to your biggest, greatest conceivable, achievable dream. Get into the habit of always going to that thing, that highest thing. And I can tell you, people will work through to their goals a hell of a lot faster. Who runs a marathon, for instance, and looks at every mile marker. Like, you know what I mean? Like, eventually you just settle into the run and you just pull in the horizon, because the finish line is what you want anyway.
Okay.
So, so that's one of the things that I try and inspire people to do. That's one of the things I do now. I look at my highest conceivable, achievable goal. I want to be an actor. I will be an actor. I will be on the screen, and I will do something meaningful. I will pour myself into something, and it will make a fucking difference, and it will be cool, you know? Right?
I can't wait to see it.
Me too. So
Yeah.
that's something that I try and help folks do, is move ahead of the hurdle, and always hold yourself in that vibration, that thought, and you'll find yourself moving faster towards it.
Yeah, and I love what you said about attitude of gratitude. You know, I saw you posted something about that in your Instagram as well. I think that gratefulness is something that is so lost in society today. You know, people,
Yeah.
even using the word grateful. You know, one of my good friends has helped kind of instill that within me in the past year, and you know, I just, as much as I can, share that I'm grateful with other people or for my family or other things. I'm always trying to, even when you say that word, it's so powerful, you know, how people take it.
Sure. Sure. You know, I looked at my barista this morning, looked her dead in the eyes, and I said, I appreciate you. Because no shit. Like, you know what that coffee's going to help me do today? Like, you know what I mean? Like, we take so many things for granted. That's the problem, the attitude of gratitude. But again, you have to be consciously aware of it. You can't just let it be an influence for a month or so and then you fall back into your old, you know. So you have to be consciously aware of that attitude of gratitude. The other thing also is that we really do have it good. I mean, the vast majority of us who have the ability to enjoy a podcast, who are listening to this right now,
Absolutely,
we have it pretty freaking good,
mm-hmm.
you know? So whenever we stop and we, again, take that giant step back, we stop looking at syrup bottles and we really start thinking about those 2 to 3 million children that are going to starve to death. We have it really freaking good.
We do.
So you know, it's easy for me to sit here in a place of comfort as a white man in 2020 and go, I want to be an actor. I know that. I think the only difference in this path of my life is it has nothing to do with ego. It's just how I want to spend my time. It's the clay I want to get my hands into. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. I love that. So I would say what's next for Barry Karcher, but it sounds like you're actively pursuing acting. So, you know, anything.
I don't. Yeah, I never thought I'd end up on a survival show either, though. So I don't I don't limit myself to anything. You know, I think the biggest thing is this: if I'm sticking to my core values and it makes me feel good, I'm going to do it. Period.
That's wonderful.
I was just speaking with my wife. The next thing that I'm preparing to do is I'm training for an Ironman. So I'm going to be doing Ironman Arizona in a year.
That's incredible.
And so I was speaking to my wife about it in the car, and I was talking about how excited I was because I go, ooh, I'm going to get to learn how to properly ride a road bike. I'm going to get to learn how to open water swim. And my wife's looking at me and she goes, oh my gosh. I was like, what? She goes, nothing in there was ego. It's just all excitement to learn. It's not about beating a time. It's not about, you know what I mean? I was just like,
absolutely.
I felt the growth and it felt good, you know? So that's how I know I'm on the right track. It feels good. That's how I'm going to do it.
That's incredible.
So for me, Ironman, and hopefully getting to work with some incredible writers and, you know, directors, and hopefully some other co-actors that can guide me and help me along the way.
Absolutely. Well, it sounds really exciting. And Barry, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. Where can listeners follow you on social media? Where can I connect with you?
Well, you can find me on Barry Karcher on the Instagram, right? And I'm also Barry Karcher on Facebook. There's not many of me, so you can find me on those.
Karcher. All right.
That's right. Karcher. That's right. And a lot of great things, and a lot of great things have come from the show. So I'm looking forward to being involved in all of it.
Absolutely. Well, Barry, it has been a pleasure. So
Thanks, Don.
much for joining us. Have a great day.
You too, Don. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.